The dusty attic smelled of old paper and forgotten memories. James Carter, a struggling historian, had just inherited his late grandfather's house, an ancient Victorian mansion in Boston. As he rummaged through the old belongings, his fingers brushed against a worn-out leather-bound book. The diary had intricate gold embroidery and a peculiar lock, one that snapped open as soon as he touched it. The first page carried a name, Dr. Elias Thornton, 1872. The handwriting was elegant yet hurried, as if the writer had been in a rush. But what caught James's attention wasn't the name. It was the date of the first entry, October 3rd, 2025. His heart skipped a beat. How could a diary from 1872 contain a date from the future? His fingers trembled as he flipped the pages. The further he read, the more unsettling it became. The diary predicted events that hadn't happened yet. And worse, it started mentioning James by name. James initially thought it was a coincidence, or perhaps a hoax. But the next morning, as he sipped his coffee, he turned on the news and froze. A massive fire broke out in an abandoned library on Oak Street late last night. The exact event described in the diary. The same date, the same time. His mind raced. Maybe it was just an eerie coincidence. But what if it wasn't? Later that evening, he sat in his study, hesitant to read more. But curiosity won. He flipped the page. October 4th, 2025. James Carter will encounter a stranger in a gray coat. He must not follow him. His stomach twisted. That was tomorrow. The next morning, James tried to go about his day as usual, but his eyes kept darting around for the man in the gray coat. By noon, he almost convinced himself it was nonsense, until he stepped out of a cafe and bumped into someone. A man in a gray trench coat. The stranger's piercing blue eyes locked onto James's. "Be careful what you read," the man whispered, and then, without another word, vanished into the crowd. James's pulse thundered in his ears. This wasn't normal. This wasn't a game. He rushed home, heart pounding, and flipped to the next page of the diary. James Carter will return home and attempt to burn this diary. But the diary will not burn. He gasped. That's exactly what he had been thinking. Testing fate, he grabbed a match and lit a page. The flame flickered, danced, but never touched the paper. It refused to burn. The next few entries described mundane events. A car accident 2 streets over. A minor power outage. Small details that all came true. James was living inside a book that knew his future. Then, one night, he turned to a page that made his blood run cold. October 10th, 2025. James Carter will be murdered at precisely 11:43 p.m. He dropped the book. His breathing turned shallow. This wasn't just a diary anymore. It was a death sentence. Determined to change his future, James barricaded himself inside his home as the date approached. He installed extra locks, disconnected his phone, and even armed himself with a kitchen knife. But as the clock neared 11:43 p.m., an eerie chill settled in the room. The lights flickered. A whispering voice filled the air. "You should have never opened the book." James spun around, but the room was empty. He could hear footsteps inside the house. A shadow moved in the dim candlelight. The man in the gray coat. James lunged forward, but the man was faster. He grabbed James's wrist and whispered, "The diary was never yours to read." Then, everything went black. James woke up gasping for air. He was in a hospital bed, bandaged and disoriented. A nurse smiled at him. "You're lucky. A neighbor found you unconscious just before midnight." What happened? James tried to speak, but stopped. He was still alive. The diary's prediction had failed. Or had it? The nurse placed a small box on his bedside table. "This was found with you. Looks old." James's heart stopped. It was the diary. The last entry had changed. October 12th, 2025. James Carter will wake up in a hospital. He will believe he has escaped fate. But the story is not over. A chill ran down his spine. The diary wasn't just predicting his life. It was controlling it. "You have drawn the eyes of the gods with your beauty. You have lured destruction upon yourself." His last known project? Experiments on time and consciousness. James traveled to an old library and uncovered a hidden journal by Dr. Thornton. It detailed his obsession with creating a diary that would loop through time, guiding its owner while trapping them in an endless cycle. His hands trembled as he read the final note. The diary does not tell the future. It ensures it happens. James realized the horrifying truth. Every choice he made wasn't free will. The diary was writing his destiny, and he was merely following orders. Determined to break free, James decided to destroy the diary, not with fire, but by rewriting it. He grabbed a pen and wrote, October 15th, 2025. James Carter destroys this diary, erasing its power forever. The ink shimmered, the pages trembled, and for the first time, he felt a shift in reality. He closed the book and walked to the nearest river, throwing it into the rushing waters. For the first time in weeks, he felt free. The nightmare was over, or so he thought. Months later, James received a package. No return address. Inside was a book, a leather-bound diary. The first page had only one line. "Welcome back, James. You can never escape." James's eyes widened. A faint whisper filled the room. The diary flipped open on its own, revealing a new entry. October 20th, 2025. James Carter will meet the true author of this diary. A cold sweat broke over his skin. If he wasn't writing his own fate, then who was?